go. Get ready. Get ready. Get ready. Don't blink, don't blink. Get ready. Get ready. Get ready. Don't blink, don't blink. I don't wait for nobody.
Good day to all of you. Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat, mga kabansa. Kayo ay nasa AngMaestro, and this is episode 251. And the title of this episode is 225 Threats versus Philippine Economy. Sara impeached, coversup Marcos wanton corruption, and US intervention. Why are we broadcasting today? What is the purpose of this broadcast? But to expose not only the internal problems that confronts this country, but likewise the external factors that heavily weighs on the shoulders of every Filipino. Now, as we are confronted in our daily lives with issues that we have already discussed in the previous episodes, we are now confronted with an even more ominous sign of a possible near collapse this year of our economy. Look at this. Trump dumps USAID. Pakinggan po natin itong, let us listen to this video.
We do have some breaking news out of Washington, D.C. at this hour. I wanted to share this post by the New York Post stating that USAID staffers have been told to stay out of the D.C. headquarters after Elon Musk said President Trump agreed to shut it down. And I wanted to share more information about this breaking news as you are taking a live look at the Capitol on this Monday morning. The very latest out of Washington, D.C. is this. Staffers of the U.S. Agency for International Development were instructed to stay out of the agency's Washington headquarters today. That is according to a notice distributed to them after billionaire Elon Musk announced President Trump had agreed with him to shut the agency. USAID staffers also said they tracked more than 600 employees who reported being locked out of the agency's computer systems overnight. Those still in the system received emails saying that, quote, at the direction of agency leadership, the headquarters building will be closed to agency personnel on Monday, February 3rd. These developments come after Elon Musk, who is leading a civilian review of the federal government with President Trump's agreement, had said early Monday that he had spoken with President Trump about the 6-decade USAID and Development Agency and, quote, he agreed we should shut it down. Elon Musk saying in a live session on X earlier today, quote, it became apparent that it's not an apple with a worm in it. What we have is just a ball of worms. You've got to basically get rid of the whole thing. It's beyond repair.
Just in case you don't know yet, President Trump was just assumed office last January 20, has appointed Elon Musk, the chair and CEO of Tesla, the first electric car company that went on commercial production on a large scale. And he was appointed as secretary of a new department called Department of Government Efficiency, in charge of engineering the U.S. government and streamlining the bureaucracy. And this is how it directly affects, in this chart, the Philippines. USA to the Philippines is 336 million. Now, earlier before this USAID was announced, closure was announced, there was an announcement of a 90-day freeze on all release of military assistance to different countries except Israel, of course, that is in war right now, and Egypt, right? With the exception of those two countries, all foreign military aid has also been frozen. So if we add 184, which was intended for the Philippines, 100 this year and 84 last year, that would be 520 billion. I'm sorry, 520 million pesos, dollars, equivalent to 30 billion pesos. And this does not yet include possible cuts in the National Endowment for Democracy appropriations and in the America Competes Act. Ito pong National Endowment for Democracy was the creation of Reagan, and this America Competes Act is the creation of Barack Obama. That was established in 1983, and Barack Obama established the America Creating Opportunities to meaningfully promote excellence in technology, education, and science, intended as an investment in innovation through research and development to improve competitiveness of the U.S. predominantly against China, that is now an ascending power. All told, when all of this is released, we might be affected by a reduction of $1 billion in aid to the Philippines. That is phenomenal. But why would Elon Musk and Trump do this to a 60-year-old institution? Well, because in their view, USAID has adopted a split personality. It aims to provide economic development and humanitarian assistance worldwide, but it has served as a tool for advancing U.S. geopolitical interests worldwide and to promote regime changes and the destabilization of governments perceived as adversarial to American influence. And the intricate correlations of all these forces, from the USAID to the Central Intelligence Agency, down to the National Endowment for Democracy, down to the International Republican Institute and the National Democratic Institute, all the way to the Freedom House, to the Open Society Foundation of George Soros, and many others on the right going left, all in control of media. They're all there. And it presents a scenario that followed the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, with the U.S. seeking to fill the vacuum by installing pro-Western puppet regimes. And U.S.-funded programs aimed at weakening Russian influence and integrating those Western institutions onto NATO and the European Union under the guise of promoting democracy. We have seen this regime change record in Ukraine, in what you call the 2004 Orange Revolution and the 2014 Euro-Maidan Revolution. No? We saw how USA funded organizations for the takeover of Viktor Yushchenko, the pro-Western president of Ukraine, and how USA-backed groups were instrumental in the Euromaidan protests. But between 2004 and 2014, nagkaroon na po ng Minsk I that generated the ceasefire between Eastern and Western Ukraine, but was not followed, and there followed the 2014 Euromaidan Revolution, which called for the second, or the Minsk II. Hindi pa rin, it didn't end there. Until in 2022, anywhere between 10 to 20,000 Eastern Ukrainians were killed by the non-stop artillery of the Western Ukrainians, because they were infiltrated by Nazi forces. In Georgia, there was the 2003 Rose Revolution that saw the overthrow of President Edward Shevardnadze and brought Mikhail Saakashvili to power. And in Serbia, the 2000 Bulldozer Revolution, which saw the ouster of Slobodan Milosevic. The use of propaganda and soft power by the USA, and predominantly by its arms like the National Endowment for Democracy. And we would like to go into a little bit more of discussion about NED here by saying that even in 1986, 3 years after its founding, its president Carl Gersman told the New York Times, "It would be terrible for democratic groups around the world to be seen as subsidized by the CIA. We saw that in the 60s, and that is why the CIA was discontinued, and all its overt functions were transferred to the National Endowment for Democracy by a legislative fiat that created the National Endowment for Democracy as what you call in the US as a 501c3 organization." All right? And one of NED's founders, Alan Weinstein, was more blunt when he told the Washington Post, "A lot of what we do today was done covertly 25 years ago by the CIA. And we have seen how NED has trained, supported, and funded demonstrations and regime change operations in Venezuela, Ukraine, and Nicaragua." It's not surprising that NED's board of directors includes two infamous war criminals, Elliot Abrams, who helped funnel weapons and funds to right-wing Contras in Nicaragua, and to Victoria Nuland, who directed U.S. policy in Ukraine to fund an armed right-wing insurgency that engineered the overthrow of democratically elected government, an insurgency that has committed countless war crimes against civilians. But let us go closer to home. This neoconservative money has found itself all the way to fund planes in New Hong Kong. And since 2014, the year of the umbrella protests, NED has poured over $29 million into this island city in order to identify new avenues for democracy and political reform. But that's according to the NED's website. No? Here in this picture we see, in the midst of the protests, a U.S. consulate representative receiving a letter from protesters that marched to the U.S. consulate in Hong Kong in September 18, 2019. This is what we mean by overt. They're not even hiding it. They're right in front of your faces. And all for what? All for creating trouble in the transition of Hong Kong to be turned over by the United Kingdom or the British government back to China, where China has already adopted a two systems, one government approach. They were trying to sabotage it and promote further destabilization of China. In 2020 alone, total grants of more than 10 million US dollars. I will no longer mention specifics about Hong Kong, but in Xinjiang, they supported secessionists and spread rumors, giving the Congress and Human Rights Project close to 700,000 US dollars in Tibet. Also supporting secessionists and spread rumors for totaling about 450,000 plus of both in Xinjiang, 1.2 million, and in Tibet, 1 million in all. We will no longer go to the finer details. In Taiwan, net funding has been channeled through foundations, awards, and giving support to the Taiwan Independence Forces through arms, lobby, under the guise of democracy. And even inside China, about $6 million were spent to defame Chinese government and incite hatred. And more than 1 million of this went to the Solidarity Center and even to a website, news media outlet called China Digital Times, over 100,000. So this is how this whole thing plays. Insofar as the USAID and all its fingers are working towards the promotion of what you call the rule-based order of the United States, which is not international order. The rule-based order is international law from the viewpoint of what serves the best interest of the and in the Philippines, we will no longer go into the other institutional expense to the non-government organization and even government organization, to the civil society groups, to the academe and other private foundations, that money coming from USAID, the National Endowment for Democracy and other sources. We will just center on what Ambassador Roberto Tiglao exposed in the Manila Times on March 1, 2019. This involves money going from USAID to the Central Intelligence Agency down to the National Endowment and distributed to media organizations like the CMFR, like the PCIJ, like the Vera Files and Rappler, the biggest of whom went to Rappler because not only from National Endowment Foundation, it got 180 million from Omidyar and North-based media. Let us play this video.
Angry Democrats throwing a
Hissy fit after Elon Musk dropped the Doge hammer on the Hunter Biden of government agencies. It's called USAID. And earlier, staffers got locked out of their headquarters in Washington as it gets rolled over into the State Department. The agency is supposed to oversee humanitarian development and security programs in some 120 countries and is in charge of over $70 billion of your taxpayer money. But the Trump administration argues it has become a clown car of corruption. And Musk sums it up this way, quote, USAID is a criminal organization. Time for it to die.
My goodness. Now, how does this translate to how it directly affects money and economics in the Philippines? You know, if we're going to lose $1 billion just from one source, and maybe even higher, And we have not put our act together. It has been 32 months from the time this administration took over, and we have not seen any sign of convenience in our lives, any improvement. In fact, 63% of the Filipino now considers themselves poor. This is the highest since 2018. The statistics does not prove any better when it comes to the inflation rate. %72% of our people have identified economics as the biggest problem, with only 28 going to maybe law enforcement or even claims of sovereignty issues. 5% only for sovereignty issues. And yet, we are losing, and we see the ravine right in front of us, and we're still moving towards the ravine. There is nothing that we can do to maneuver the direction of our country. Why? Because we have not taken advantage of the $23 billion in economic assistance that China has pledged to this administration. And instead, this administration has taken the word of Joe Biden, an ironclad commitment, and diverted the attention of this government, this presidency, and this Congress from what really matters to the Filipino, which is their livelihood. Our attention is in chasing Coast Guard ships in South China Sea. Our attention has been in changing the name of that sea to something else in order to suit not what is good for us, but in order to please. So where are we now? Under what we call in Latin as a fortiori logic. It is now with more reason that the Supreme Court must disfavor the 2025 General Appropriations Act, which President Marcos signed on December 30 at 6.3 trillion. Let us show the chart. Of these, only 4.640 trillion can be supported by revenues, already including the 22% contribution of our gross domestic product. Ang laki po. Yung hindi natin, what we will not earn from production, 78%, we are living beyond our means. 78% beyond our means. But when you add the taxes, it moves to somewhere around 2/3. But still, we are short with an anticipated deficit of 1.6 trillion. Ano ito sinasabi ni... And the president does not even know how to deal with it. Siya mismo ang nag-blow ng whistle sa sarili niya when he talked about shutdown. Oh. Ito ho, ibig sabihin, Presidente, sa kanyang shutdown theory. Let's play the video.
On budget lang po, sir.
Yes.
May we have your reaction dun sa final lang po na challenge before the Supreme Court ni former ES Vic Rodriguez. What do you think of this, sir? Unconstitutional daw yung GAA.
Well, that I've read some of the filing, the complaint. Well, the Solzhen, of course, will be the ones who will argue for the government. He tells me, Solzhen Maynard tells me that we are on a solid footing in terms of constitutionality. I don't know why they bothered to file that, because napakahirap ng kanilang assertion. It clearly doesn't. Well, anyway, it's not for me to make the argument. We'll let the Soldier make the argument before the Supreme Court, and we're very confident that our case is strong.
Pero just in case lang, sir, na pumabor, not in favor of the admin, yung decision ng Supreme Court, meron po ba tayong contingency?
No, we shut down everything. I guess that's what they want. They want the government to cease working. So yung matuloy yung kanilang mga destabilization na ginagawa.
Sana malakuhan ni President. Anong shutdown pinagsasabi niya? If the Supreme Court disfavors the 2025 General Appropriations Act assigned by you, the law provides that we will just have to reenact the budget to the year before this year. And let's go back to the chart. The 2025 GAA 6.326, the reenacted budget is about 9.7 less, which will translate to 614 billion in savings. Makakatipid pa tayo ng 1.4 billion ito. Savings. So tamang direksyon, austerity, accountability, hindi wanton corruption. Because saan nyo ba naman dadali yung 614 billion na yan? Nabisto na kayo. Ha? Nabisto na kayo. Alright. Substantial hike in borrowings. Well, does not also only increase our debt servicing, but has a chilling effect on the value of our currency. Gusto niyo bang magkaroon ng devaluation? Akyat kayo ng akyat ng budget? Explain natin maya-maya kung saan nyo dadalhin sana ang pera. Widespread opposition to the 2025 budget became even louder nung ma-expose na yung 2025 differential na yan was only geared by the Congress to support pork barrel and certain appropriations intended for congressmen, especially those who were running for re-election in the 2025. Eh, ang pork barrel ho, outlawed na by the Supreme Court. Huh? Marcos said a reenacted budget will set us back, delay our vital programs, jeopardize targets for economic growth, including our goals for achieving single-digit poverty levels and upper middle income status. Eh, wala ka namang input eh. Wala ka namang projects. Tapos last year, yung mga program appropriations for projects and line items identified, saan yung dinala ni Martin Romualdez? Una-una, nagpapalusot kayo ng constitutional provision to para humaba ang tenure ng mga termino ninyo. through people's initiative. Tapos yung pagsusuhol nyo doon sa mga sumusuporta sa inyo sa people's initiative, hindi nyo naman pera ang ginamit eh. Oh, kaya kayo nag-convert ng program funds at dinala ninyo sa unprogrammed appropriations. Nagsingit pa kayo ng mga kung ano-ano mga ayuda. So, nung mabawas yung mga program projects, in fact, ang daming na-stop na infrastructure. Oh. Nung una, gusto nyo pang i-rebid yung mga Chinese-approved projects. Nung wala naman kayong makuha, nung pagkukuhanan, dahil walang interesado, dahil wala ng pera ang Amerika, wala ng pera ang South Korea, wala ng pera ang Japan sa kanilang aid programs. Ito na, kikita na nga natin ang Amerika, nagbabawas eh. Anong ginawa ninyo? Hindi kayo nagtinag. Ha? Actually, Mr. Marcos, you are in hot waters. Because the 25 increments na in-insert nyo dyan, ipukorek nyo yung marami ninyong i-divert the line items into non-program funds distributed mostly by Speaker Martin Romualdez to left and right ayudas and allegedly to needy publics. So, ano yung shutdown na sinasabi mo? Baka ikaw ang mag-shutdown. Dahil wala kang plan B. Sa agriculture lang eh. Nagdeklara na kayo ng rice emergency. Ang tourism nyo is not even 10% of the tourism during Duterte's time. Sa trade, nababawasan pa kayo ng exports. Wala namang foreign investment na pumasok. Yung minamanipulate yung foreign investment. Aba, pera rin pala nang galing sa land bank. Pinaikot lang ng aboitis. Supposedly for renewable projects, pero pinambili ng Coca-Cola Bottling Company. Soft drinks. Tapos ngayon, gusto nyo bilhin ng NGCP? With what? Maharlika Investment Fund. Akala ko ba yung Maharlika Investment Fund is supposed to germinate a clamor for foreign investors to come into the country. Well, nationwide indignation has drawn nationwide support. At hindi ka pa natinag. Hindi ka pa natinag. Ito ho yung Iglesia ni Cristo rally. Panuorin natin ang video.
Nakibahagi naman po ang ilang lider ng ibang relihiyon sa idinaos na National Rally for Peace na pinangunahan po ng Iglesia ni Cristo. Suportado po nila ang isinulong na pagkakaisa at kapayapaan para sa bansa. Weng de la Fuente sa balitang yan.
Nakipagkaisa sa isinagawang National Rally for Peace na pinangunahan ng Iglesia ni Cristo maging ang ilang lider ng ibang relihiyon sa iba't ibang probinsya. Nagpasalamat din sila dahil pinangunahan ang isang kilusan para tawagan ng pansin ang mga namumuno sa pamahalaan na unahin ang kapakanan ng mamamayan.
Naunahin ang kapakanan ng mga mamamayan. And for the first time, I see myself supporting Cardinal Archbishop Philippine. As your Archbishop, sabi niya, I admonish you to study diligently, judge critically, and act with vigilance on the moral concern of the 2025 national budget. It is a grave social concern. The Bicameral Conference Committee has in fact acted as a third chamber. Nag-invento na kayo ng sarili niyong gobyerno. More powerful than either the lower and upper house because it is their version that is eventually passed on to law. The reason that this is a moral concern, sabi ni So, is that the budget is an issue of what Catholic social teaching calls distributive justice. Yung pong redistribution of wealth, of the nation's wealth to its people and not just to a selected few. The fair and reasonable, equitable distribution, and to be truly the result of democratic process, what is passed into law must be drafted by the common consensus of the people's elected representatives, scrutinizing, debating, voting as the people's representatives, rather than by a selective group that is not fairly representative of the general population. Ayan po. Asan ang distributive justice dyan? At hindi lamang yan. Nakarating na po sa business community. Ang resulta ng earthquake. Na-create ng earthquake, yung budget na yan. At ito, mga tremors. No less than FINMA Corporation Chair and CEO Ramon de Rosario. We cannot stay silent when we see concerning patterns in public spending. We should not be guardians of the corporate bottom lines. We should be stewards of our nation's dignity and well-being. Ayan. Among questionable provisions, Del Rosario cited the additional 289 billion that was inserted into the budget of the DPWH during closed-door bicameral meetings. Large sums were funneled into public works initiatives in various legislative districts, particularly flood control projects, which are difficult to monitor and assess for efficiency. In this black hole called bicameral committee, what happened was esteemed legislators transferred huge amounts of funds from what they are ordinarily identified as high priority projects of our national government, underfunded them, and diverted funds from these projects towards a bunch of what they call public works projects that are scattered all over their districts. Sabi ng PINMA chair, these projects are poorly studied, poorly identified, and disproportionately allocated to flood control, for instance, which he suggested could be prone to corruption. While the president had binito lang niya 26 billion, 263 billion of this discretionary insertions remain. Kaya iwas siya. Hindi niya sinunod yung advice ng kanyang sariling kapatid na ibalik sa Kongreso bago niya pirmahan at ayusin ang Kongreso. Sabi ni Del Rosario, crucial social services face deep cuts, 74 billion from PhilHealth, effectively zeroing its subsidy, and 50.4 billion from Bantawid, Pamilya Filipino program that supports education and health of many poor children, and which is already an institution. Dahil ito ay sinimulan pa ng panahon ni Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo, nakaayos na ang plantilla niyan, naka-identify na ang validation dyan ng DPWH from time to time to make sure that the money is spent properly. Anong ginawa ninyo? Binawasan ninyo at nilagay ninyo sa inyong petty cash fund na X ba yan at saka akap at tupad pa kung ano-ano kalukuhan din. This cut, sabi ni Del Rosario, undermine our nation's development priorities and force our people to depend on political patronage for basic needs that should be their right. Nakakalunos, mga kabansa. Tapos, anong solusyon nyo? Ito ang solusyon nyo. In-impeach nyo si Sara. Ha? At itong anak ng presidente, na paunang pumirma, yun ang pangalan niya, naka-underline ng pula. Number 1. At ito ang justification niya sa pirma niya para maging patang naman tayo. Labas natin kung ano ang rason nitong spoiled brat na ito. Kung bakit pumirma siya dyan. Let's play the video.
Well, katulad po sa sinabi ng ating Pangulo ay nung nagpirmahan na sa impeachment complaint ay tinanong ko siya kung ano bang advice niya. And tama naman yung sinabi niya. He said, do your duty as a congressman and uphold your oath to the Constitution that you swore to protect. And it's my constitutional duty to go through the impeachment process as an elected representative. Now, as to why I was the first one to sign, alangan naman kung sasabihin ng tao na gusto nilang huhukayin yung lolo mo at itapon yung katawan sa West Philippine Sea. Sasabihin niya gusto niyang patayin ang Pangulo at ang First Lady na ang aking magulang at gusto niyang patayin ang Speaker. Eh, ba't naman nagugulat ang tao na pipirma ako dyan? You know, these are statements that can't be taken lightly, especially from someone with such a high position. So, nagtataka na nga ako kung bakit nagulat yung tao. Alangan naman kung sasabihin mo, huhukayin mo lolo ko. Of course, I'll be the first one to sign.
So, gusto mong tanggapin namin ang pagkabengatibo mo? Where is your statesmanship? If Sara meant so, and bakit ka bababa doon sa level na yun, which you consider is not par with your standard? Alam mo, Totoy, Sandro pala, hindi kaya nautusan ka lang ng nanay mo dito? Wala yung sinabi mo, hindi yung paninindigan, hindi yung based on principle. That is based on, Lex Talionis yun Dudukutin mo ang mata ko dudukutin mo na muna yung mata mo. Tama ba yan? For a parliamentarian? Wow! That is how low our Congress has gone. Pero dito pinakita mo. Dahil ang tatay mo ay nagsimula na, meron pa siyang storm in a teacup. Na hindi ka sumusunod sa tatay mo. Kunwari, nagpaalam ka pa. Sinasabi mo, support the constitutional process. Asan ang value system mo? Hindi mo ba inisip na baka makompormiso ang tatay mo dito sa gagawin mo? O di ka, pumirma ka na lang, number 10 siguro, number 250, huli, hindi una. Bakit? Dahil dito pinakita mo ang katotohanan at verifikasyon na wala na talagang sumusunod sa tatay mo. Makabinet posisyon na siya mismo ang mga nag-appoint, wala na. disregard ka na. O, si Gibocho Doro lang, may sariling widow sa military. Si Browner, naghahanap ng mga espiya. Iba takbo eh. Ha? Pinakita mo rito na definitely your father is not only a lame duck president, but also fair game dahil sarili ng anak hindi naiintindihan ang implikasyones ng sinabi ng tatay niya. The storm is not in the teacup, Mr. Sandro Marcos. The storm is in your immediate family. Wala kayo. Pinakita nyo, kengkoy na trato nyo sa tatay nyo. Bakit? Dahil ba mahina na lagi namamaga mukha niya? Mahina na ang kidney. Wala kayong circumspection dito sa doomsday na pinipresent ko. Itong papasukin natin na krisis, inuna nyo pa ang politika. Ha? Pero, mga kabansa, ito lang masasabi ko sa inyo. Higpit sinturon po kayo at babagsak na naman po ang kabuhayan dahil busy-busy ang gobyerno ito sa pamumulitika. Wala siyang nababanggit pa na solusyon sa mga problemang ekonomiko. At hindi mo ba naiintindihan na walang saysay naman yung ginawa na yung impeachment? Impeachment na yan. Ha? Ito ang responde ng Vice President na in-impeach niya. Medyo.
We are not all bothered. I am bothered na gusto nila i-frustrate ang pinili ng mga tao na maging Vice President, all because of power and politics.
Paliwanag pa ni VP Sara na kumbinsi itong tumakbo bilang ikalawang Pangulo matapos lumapit sina Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Jr. at Senator Amy Marcos upang hingi ng kanyang suporta noong halalan.
Pagkatapos ng filing of candidacy, lumapit na sa akin yung magkapatid na Marcos. Sabi nila, hindi kami mananalo kung hindi mo tutulungan kami sa Mindanao at sa Visayas. Sabi ko sa kanila, okay, sige.
Binigyan din ni VP Sara na hindi kawalan sa kanya ang posisyon.
So, pagpaalisin nila ako dito or impeach nila ako, hindi kawalan sa akin ang posisyon na Vice President. In the first place, hindi ko naman gusto tumakbong presidente. Hindi ko gusto tumakbong Vice President.
At this point, magbasa tayo. Meron ba mga nagpadala ng comments? Okay. Siglarf Balbaceda, good morning, Maestro. Osman Mohamed Zin, good afternoon, Kaado. Charm, si Sandurog, kamukha pala ni Charis Pempenko, ay is Jake Cyrus na pala ngayon. Anyway, FUCK, the liberal globalist, greetings po Kaado, tuloy-tuloy. Looks like PBM's opposition to impeachment against VP Sara is nothing but a pampupogi in front of media. Okay. So, tuloy po tayo sa ating diskurso. Hindi naman tayo pwede magbasa na masyadong marami. At ito kasi ang problema. Nangako kayo ng 50 plus 100, 50 in ayuda and 100 million per signature, 150 per million. Saan nyo kukunin yan? Sa may enacted budget, wala hong ayuda, wala, puro line items so doon eh. Puro line items so doon. Ha? Tinuloy niyo pa ito. Ha? Tinuloy niyo pa ito. Bakit? To deal with a reputational cost against Sara Duterte. Ultimo Senate President, pinagtatawa lang kayo eh. Ito ho, sabi ni Jesus Cordero.
Escudero questions why the Senate is being pressed to immediately act on the articles of impeachment filed against Vice President Sara Duterte when the House of Representatives took more than 2 months to act on it. At the Kapihan sa Senado Forum on Thursday, February 6, Escudero was asked to explain why the Senate did not immediately act on impeachment complaints upon its arrival in the Senate on Wednesday afternoon, February 5. Escudero points out that the first 3 impeachment complaints were stuck in the House for more than 2 months for these to be thoroughly checked by lawmakers.
Mahigit 2 buwan, hindi finorward ng Secretary General ang impeachment complaint sa tanggapan ng Speaker para i-refer sa plenary at sa Committee on Justice. Magkatabi lamang naman ang kwarto tulad sa Senado ng Secretary General at ng Speaker, ang Secretary ng Senate at ng Senate President. Bakit naman kami bigla sasabihang gumalaw umakto agad sa loob lamang ng ilang oras?
Escudero is referring to the 3 impeachment complaints filed in the House last December. The 4th complaint against Duterte was only initiated, passed, and transmitted to the Senate on Wednesday. Escudero also assures the public that the Senate would stay committed to fulfilling its mandate even if the chamber is in recess, explaining that they would use this time to review the Senate's rules regarding impeachment.
Ang impeachment process para sa akin, hindi mahalaga kung pabor kayo o kontra, hindi mahalaga kung ma-acquit o ma-convict. Ang mahalaga para sa akin, bilang tagapangulo ng Senado, maging maayos ito, sang-ayon sa batas, credible, kapanipaniwala, at magagawad ng hustisya. Pabor man yun sa opinyon ng mas nakararami o konti o hindi.
The Senate adjourned its session on Wednesday shortly after the House of Representatives transmitted the 4th impeachment complaint backed by 215 lawmakers. The Senate chief is almost certain that the impeachment bill against Duterte will be decided by the next Congress. According to Escudero, the Senate should be in session to convene an impeachment court that would try the case against Duterte.
So, nakita niyo ba yung si Reginald Velasco? Kaibigan ko yan eh. Sabay ko kami sa Philippine Embassy sa Washington, D.C. noong 1986 to 1993. At nagsilbi ho yan ang Second Secretary for Economic Affairs. Alam niyo ba kung sino ang boss niya? Si Enrique Manalo ho, na Secretary of Foreign Affairs. Ay nakakatuwa. Dahil pawis na pawis itong siya, sabi ni Bobby Tignaw, siner sa atin, sa kanyang kolong, noong February 7, no? Sa Manila Times, no? Na hirap daw through traffic to si Reginald Velasco, si Reggie. Paano Reggie? Gusto ka dyan? Nakarating naman sa office ni Secretary ng Senate na si Bantong. Pero lasing ko na. Ang problema, si Bantong, may problema dahil hindi naman basta ho i-receive yan na parang Lazada, parang Shopee, parang Temu, parang Lalamode. Hindi ho. Yung actual na pag-akyat ng papeles mula sa opisina ni Bantong, ipoproseso pati, magtatay pa siya ng, ano dyan eh, endorsement memorandum para iakyat sa Senado. Eh wala ho eh. Nakita niyo ba? Yung paghampas ng gable ni Jesus Cordero to sa motion sino ba nag-motion? Si Joel Villanueva daw to put the session, tapusin na yung session and to reconvene sa June. Pero sa media sabi, formally turn over to the Senate. Hindi ho. It has not yet been received by the Senate. Kaya nagulat ako dyan kay Antonio Carpio. Ayaw niya. Ituloy yung impeachment niya. Sabi niya, sa next Congress na ho, after the elections sa 2025, doon nyo isumite ang impeachment complaint. Bakit? Hindi naabot lang ang material time. So by 5:30, bar! Tapos na. June 2 na ulit, magkukumbin ang Senado. Pagkukumbin sila, mag-a-adapt pa ng resolution, accepting, and they will not run it like the Senate. No, they will have to reconvene and transform themselves into a trial, a tribunal. They will have to adopt rules. They will have to give Sara Duterte 10 days to reply. Magkakaroon pa ng mga presentation of witnesses dahil hindi naman ho yan katulad nung manipulasyon na ginawa yung Patchbury Railroad dyan sa lower house. Well, anyway, ito ho ang final response ng ating Vice President.
Vice President Sara Duterte says she is not yet considering resigning from her post even after being impeached by the House of Representatives. In a press conference on Friday, February 7, Duterte says her team is still in the process of going through the impeachment complaint.
Wala pa tayo doon, ma'am, na masyado pang malayo yung mga ganyan na mga bagay. Nandun pa lang tayo sa pagbabasa ng... Actually, ma'am, wala pa tayo doon dahil yung mga abogado lang yung nagtatrabaho. Hindi ko talaga alam kung anong ginagawa nila.
The House of Representatives on Wednesday, February 5, impeached Duterte after 215 lawmakers backed a fourth impeachment complaint. One of the articles of the impeachment in the complaint cites the threat she made against President Bongbong Marcos and his family members during an online press conference in November 2024. But Duterte denies anew that she made any threats to assassinate Marcos, First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos, and Speaker Martin Romualdez.
I did not make an assassination threat to the President. Sila lang nagsasabi niyan. Sila lang nagsasabi may assassination. Sila nagsasabi may assassin, may gunman.
Mexico GDP.
Not say that.
The Vice President also thanks her supporters, adding that victory belongs to the people.
Ang tanging masasabi ko na lamang sa puntong ito ay God save the Philippines. Bukod dito, nais ko na lang ipaabot ang aking taus-pusong pasasalamat sa mga kababayan na patuloy na nagdarasal, sumusuporta, nagtitiwala, at patuloy na nagmamahal sa akin. Manalig kayo dahil sa taong bayan ang tagumpay.
The impeachment complaint is now at the hands of the Senate. If 2/3 of Senate members vote to convict an impeachable official as outlined in the articles of impeachment, he or she will be removed from office.
At kung tutunghayan niyo itong ating final slide, yan po ang ating parting message, sa inyong lahat. Galing sa ating kagalang-galang na Vice Presidente, si Sara Duterte. Sana naman, pakinggan tayo ng Panginoon dahil mukha po ang solusyon ay wala na sa kamay ng mga tao. At sa kamay na po ng Panginoon. Ayan, may impeachment trial sa kanan, sa kaliwa naman, yung mga paepal ng 2025 midterm elections. Matutuloy pa ba yan? O baka naman, alam niyo mga kabasa, 39th anniversary ng EDSA sa February 25. Baka naman pagdating ng February 26, katulad doon nangyari noong 1986, ay iba na po ang namumuno sa bansang ito in order that God may be able to save the Philippines, mga kabansa. Hanggang dito na lamang tayo mga kabansa. Paalalahanan ko kayo, itaguhin natin ang ating marcha, at sindihan natin ang sulo ng Pilipino. Maraming salamat po.
Sa kadakilaan, bayang perlas ng silangan, may gining kapal. Bayang sinil, ikaw ay tumindig, kalayaan ipaglaban at idiin. Harapin ang mga manlulupig, nasa'yo ay sumaklot, laman mo'y kinabig. Ang tinang diwang mapagdimagsik, sa dugo at ugat magpapainit. Aserong mulo ang nakakawangis, papawi sa lumbay at mga hilagpis. Babalikwas ka sa pagkakahamak, taglay ka isipang sadyang busina. Nang nausa landas na iyong pinatahak, Pilipinis mo'y gabay sa